So as we say, higher education is what we say is possible for all. Okay, so my name is Kelly South, and I am the project coordinator for an organisation called Hepp, which is Higher Education Progression Partnership. And our aim is to speak to as many students and supporters, whether that's parents and carers or staff, students, anybody, to try and talk to them about higher education as an option. So that's what we do. And as I say, I am the project coordinator that looks after underrepresented groups, which is care experienced, young carers, mature students, and also students with disabilities. Okay, with us today, we've got lots of colleagues from different institutions, and we've got our student ambassador with us, but each one will sort of introduce themselves as they go through and do part of the presentation. Okay, so who are higher education? As I said, we provide impartial advice and guidance about higher education, and we work in South Yorkshire and North East Derbyshire, and we go out to schools around those areas, basically to encourage children, young people and adults to think about higher education as an opportunity. And we are funded by both Sheffield University. We're very fortunate. We work collaboratively with both Sheffield Hallam University and the University of Sheffield. So what we're going to cover today is quite a lot in a short space of time. We hope to get through it as quickly as possible so that you can get away and enjoy your evenings. But today, as I said, we will be covering understanding what higher education is available to disabled students, understand the support that's available out there, look at the finance, so DSA, know how to support a disabled learner when thinking about higher education, and then understanding that jargon and how that can be different. So what you talk to them about in school, some of that jargon can be slightly different in a higher education institution. Okay, so your support as a community, each and every one of us is obviously very, very out there, can change the life of a young person or an adult. So whether we are ourselves as impartial information givers, or the general public, or even people out in schools, colleges, parents and carers, everybody has that knowledge and everything else that brings together to these students to try and get them into higher education. But we are role models on students, and that you build trust with them. So obviously when they're asking you things, it's questions are asked, and those questions could change their mind. So, you know, we do get students that don't realise when we go out into schools that they can go to university as a disabled learner. And that can be because they've heard a conversation or they've heard something said. So it's really important that we are obviously there to support and provide some updated information as we go along. So any encouragement from yourselves and help makes that difference to those young people. So what you can do to help, listen. Basically what we say is just find out a bit more about them, listen to their needs, listen to what they've got to say, but also have do that encouragement. Obviously quite a lot of students will come with a lot of enthusiasm, and obviously your encouragement really does help them with that. It's about asking those questions. Now, it can be you asking questions to students, but also if you've got questions that you can't answer, it's about asking us as well. Ask us those questions. If you've got ever anything that you're unsure about, or you think you might know, but you need just clarification, please just come to ourselves. As I said, we will send out our email address to you and our website, because whatever we can't answer, we've got colleagues in lots of different areas that we collaborate with, that we can find that answer out for you. Okay, and then the final one is about support. It's really important that they have your support, and it can really change the dynamics and their viewpoints in terms of what they think they can do. So having that support is really, really key to these young people. So I'm now going to hand you over. So are you ready, Jackie, to take over?
I am.
Lovely.
Hello. Yeah, hello folks, my name's Jackie Reaney. I'm the Higher Education Disability Advisor at Barnsley College University Centre. I know it gets longer every time. Every time I do one of these sessions, my title gets longer. So that's me. I thought to start with, I'd take you on a bit of a history lesson. I know, boring, but the phrase disability, the word disability, historically takes us right back to the Disability Discrimination Act in the 90s. And actually, during the early 90s, the DSA that we're going to be talking about, the Disabled Students Allowance, first came into being. So that's 30 years ago. And I can't believe that it hasn't really changed much at all since then. But what it meant to us for it to be within the Disability Discrimination Act is it meant that we have a legislative contract with students to deliver support effectively when we're teaching them at HE level. It's good that it's bound within the law. It's good that if we get things wrong, we could be sued, because it means we have to take this very, very seriously. The disability itself, well, the Disability Discrimination Act became the Equality Act in 2010. It's exactly the same. We still have a strand within that. We fought for that to remain as a disability strand. Now, disability within education is a broader umbrella than many people expect it to be. It actually covers anyone who has a diagnosis of anything that might interfere with how they study or how they engage with their course. And that's bigger than perhaps most people think of it in terms of a disability. It means it covers things like anxiety and depression and dyslexia and diabetes and all of those things where I hear students saying, well, that can't apply to me. But if this is something that determines how best you study, that interferes maybe with your energies, that determines how flexibly you can work, how much concentration you can give, then if there is something you know your learner is having to work around on a daily basis, then that something comes under this disability umbrella for that period in higher education or in university. So every university has disability services. So when we speak today, we're speaking for the rest of the country, because the system will be broadly the same. And it doesn't matter whether we start the process in Barnsley and then move to Manchester and then move to study in London. The experience our learners will get will be the same moving from one to another, because we loop the process into each separate institution. So every institution has a disability team. If it's a large institution, a large university, there'll be a lot of people involved in that team. For the smaller ones, like for my institution, my college, then I'm the only person delivering that service. Our aim is to work with individuals to find the best fit, and this is what Kelly touched upon, the best fit of support that permits that individual applicant, that individual student, to work to their best potential. So we're here to support disabled students, and we're here to perhaps identify what might be the challenges and plot out the ways we can work around those challenges within each university. So the first way we come into contact with your applicant, with our applicants, your learners, will be when they complete their UCAS application in terms of an application to university. On the front page of the application, there is an opportunity for the learner to tick a disability coding box and to put down any information about a health issue or a mental health issue or dyslexia. And I know so many students are still a bit fearful about flagging it up at that early stage, because they say, well, who's going to see this? And my tutor's going to get to read what I've written on this. But actually, it's so that it's flagged up to us, the disability advisors. That front sheet comes to every disability team and doesn't circle around the rest of the university. So it just goes to the people who need to make contact with your learner and have a confidential discussion about what might you need and what are your biggest worries and what we have to do to make things fairer for you once you're in university. Another thing to remember just at this stage is that we don't actually collect information from your current school or your college. So that means if you're having extra time in exams, or if you need a separate room to do your exams, we won't know that unless you tell us. So whichever university you go to will only know you as you present to them. A line is drawn under what you've had during school and college, and you'll be expected to get whatever you ask for, well, whatever you identify as a need at the university. We can't, I know students have said, but we always had extra time at school. Weren't you aware of that? Didn't you see it on my records? You're 18 years old, your learners are 18 years old, we don't have access to their records from schooling. Yes, we're happy to hear about it and we're happy to put that in place, but we need to explore it as if we've never seen it before, which is exactly how it will be. We won't know about you unless it's what you tell us at the outset. So that UCAS form gives you the first opportunity for your learner to flag up to us, this is a student we need to be having a discussion with. And so we've done the history lesson, and this is the language lesson. So we've done a bit of tour of academia. Language at university and in higher education changes around disability because it becomes disability, whereas you might know it as additional learning support. And many students I've known have spent 3 years looking at around university for additional learning support, only to be told that doesn't exist. It does, it's just called the Disability Service, and we are disability advisors. SENCOs, they aren't around in universities either. As disability advisors, we take on board, are expected to take on board, every aspect of the student's need to be arranged within the university. So the SENCO work has done its job and is then transferred over to the disability advisor or the learning support coordinator. So within a university, you will be looking for a disability advisor to be your support. Within a disability service, it might be that it's within a wellbeing service or a health service. I've known universities hide them away in different places, but it is called disability service, so don't be frightened of asking for that. Medical evidence, that this is really important to start thinking about as early as possible, because your learners will have evidence around their health issue or mental health issue, but we will require something with an NHS logo on it. We need either a doctor's report or an educational psychologist report. If your learner has an education, health and care plan, EHCP, you'll all be used to that, and it is indeed acceptable to SFE, Student Finance England. They accept the EHCP as evidence only for Asperger's or autism. Now that's quite disappointing for us because it makes it harder. We don't know why they made that decision, but they will only accept the EHCP for Asperger's or autism. So if your learner has an EHCP that states Lisa has autism and epilepsy and hypermobility and dyslexia, we send it into Student Finance to get the funding through, and Student Finance will return it to us in about three to 4 weeks, and they'll say, we accept your evidence of autism, but we require alternative additional evidence of the hypermobility and the dyslexia and the diabetes or whatever it was. And that will have to be something with an NHS logo on it. So it's good to know from the outset. I speak to students who are diagnosed with, who have anxiety or depression, but who say to me, but we've never been to the doctor with it. So it's really good to start now. If it's a year hence, if it's a year, start now with making that, turning that into an NHS diagnosis, because we'll have to have something that comes from the doctor and which says Lisa suffers from anxiety. Now there is a form which is on the website, and Justine will explain that, which we can also send out to you, which you take along to your GP, and the GP will list those diagnoses, epilepsy, diabetes, whatever, on that form, and that will be acceptable to Student Finance England. Just don't fall into the trap of sending in the EHCP as your evidence of something other than autism. So medical evidence, we don't like having to keep waving that medical evidence flag, but we can understand it because Student Finance England are putting an awful lot of expensive support in place, and in order to make sense of all that money that's available, we have to have clear evidence to support your learners. And finally, DSA stands for Disabled Students Allowance. It's not what it sounds like. It's not a benefit. It's not something like disability living allowance. It's an academic budget which Student Finance England allow us to use to build a support system around each student, which enables them to work to their potential. So it's not means tested, it's not any kind of benefit, it's not paybackable, it's not part of the loan arrangement. It's the absolute definite thing that the student needs in order to have all provision put in place as soon as possible within the system at university. And I'm going to hand straight over now to Justine from Sheffield Hallam, and she's going to talk about this in more depth, and to make you feel a lot more at home with the whole process. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. So yeah, I'm Justine and I work in the disability team at Sheffield Hallam University. And as Jackie's already sort of gone through about the wording and about sort of the evidence that you need, that's all really linked to what the support you would get through disabled student allowances. And that's sort of what I'm going to talk about now. So DSA, which most people shorten it to, it comes from the government, and it comes from the loans company that you will get your loan from. So for the majority of students that you'll be talking to, it will be Student Finance England. It's not means tested, so it's not like the loans that they get for the living. It's it's the same amount for not dependent on any income. It's not repayable, so what you get, you don't have to pay the money back for that, but you never get actual physical money. It pays for stuff, and it covers any additional study related costs that you might have because of your disability, and it is linked to your teaching and learning. So it's not any sort of anything to allow you to be independent at home in accommodation, for example. It's linked to study related. And it covers equipment, assistive technology, non-medical helpers, and a couple of other small things. So for your equipment, it might be a printer if you prefer to work off printed documents. It might be a voice recorder to take into lectures, and they will part fund for the student to purchase a laptop or a desktop computer in most cases. The reason they part fund the laptop and desktop is because the expectation is that the majority of students will now have a computer to come to university, but what they need you to do is have some equipment that is good enough to run assistive technology, and that's the second part of the pot of money that they will fund. And the assistive technology might be software that can help you, especially useful if you've got a hearing or visual impairment, or if you've got dyslexia or ADHD. Loads of software out there that can support you in your learning whilst you're at university. The non-medical the non-medical helper could be a specialist mentor that can help you with your organisation, or a study skills tutor that can help you with your studying whilst you're at university. They will also fund things like a BSL interpreter, and a guide if you've got a visual impairment, to sort of get you used to the campus. The other pots that they can fund is if you have been recommended a printer, you might get the paper and the ink paid for, and in certain circumstances for certain conditions you could get a taxi from your home to university, or placement if you are on placement. So they're the sort of things that DSA can provide whilst you're at university. Right, I'll move on to the next one. That's it. So you can apply for DSA if you've got a disability that comes under the Equality Act, which means that it will last for 12 months or longer, that it does impact your day-to-day studying in this case, and that it's a diagnosis, or that it is now working towards a diagnosis. So for anyone, for example, that may have got ADHD or autism but hasn't got the diagnosis yet, because we're fully aware that this is a long process and you could have left university before you've got that diagnosis, Student Finance England will now accept a working towards diagnosis. You can be an undergraduate or a postgraduate student, and you can be studying full or part-time, as long as the course is part-time is at least 25% of a full-time equivalent and will last over a year. You've also got to be able to apply for your student loan. So it means that you're a home fee student. So if you can't apply for your student loan because, for example, you're an overseas student, then you wouldn't be able to apply for DSA. It also doesn't include anyone that needs to go on an apprenticeship. So anyone that's accessing university through an apprenticeship, they wouldn't be able to apply for DSA. Saying that, if you can't apply for DSA for whatever reason, get in touch with the university that that the student's planning on going to, because they can provide either the same or very similar support funded in a different way. So don't sort of think that you can't get access to this if you can't apply for DSA. You can, it's just in a different way. The DSA goes with you to your whichever university you end up going to. So if you apply for, say, Leeds, and then you decide you want to come to Sheffield, that's absolutely fine. You would just have to let them know. You don't have to definitely know what university you're going to before you apply. So the process is quite a long, drawn out, hard, paper-filled process, form-filled process, which often the students that need the DSA find difficult. But again, get in touch with university that you're planning on going to, or you think you might go to, and the disability team can support you in that process. You apply when once your student loan application is opened, and we would always advise you to apply at the same time that you apply for your student loan, and as early as possible before you start university. As I've already said, it can take up to 13-14 weeks from start to finish. So to make sure that you've got that support in place in September when you start at university, do it early as you can in the summer. You'll apply if you're full-time undergraduate online, then you'll get invited to attend a study needs assessment, and for the majority of students in the areas that you're talking to, it will be through Study Tech. You will contact them, or they will contact you to book a study needs assessment. The assessment it always puts people off, but it's not an assessment, it's a conversation to find out what support you've had previously, what support you might need. The assessor will talk to you about what's recommended for students in your position, and it's to come up with a shopping list of the things that you might need whilst you're studying at university. They'll write that report up, send it to Student Finance England, and then Student Finance England will send you out a letter that lists what you've been recommended and how to get it. That is the stage that a lot of students get stuck on. So if you get that letter that tells you that you can book your mentor support and you can order your equipment, and you're not sure what to do, again, get back in touch with the university. We can help you with that. We want you to have as much support as you possibly can have before you start or whilst you're at university. So just to sort of summarise, apply as early as you can. You will need that evidence to apply, and the evidence is often a sticking point, but send off what you've got. If it's not suitable, they'll let you know. go to the university and ask the university to support you in what you're looking for. Once you've got your evidence and you can book your appointment, have your study needs assessment, and then order your equipment. You can do that at any stage that you're at university. So it might be that a lot of your people that you're talking to don't have a disability at this point, but as they go through university, they may start suffering from anxiety, or they may develop a medical condition. You can still apply for DSA at any point during the time that you're at university, up to about the last 3 months, is it, Jackie? I'm just looking for you to nod. Yeah, so up to you 3 months before you finish, you can apply for DSA at any point. Yep, so I think that's me finished, and back to Kelly. Thanks.
Lovely, thanks Justine, and thanks Jackie. So yeah, over to me now. So I'm going to talk a bit about the support at higher education. So some of it is we've spoken about really in passing throughout the session so far, but there is an awful lot of support that institutions offer to young people, and that's probably key to giving the confidence to young people when you're speaking to them. They do get different institutions will be different. So again, we always recommend that they research. Any student researches what support is available at that institution to make sure that the support that they need is there. But generally, most of them will have wellbeing support, because that is a key thing for a lot of institutions. And now with mental health and wellbeing being key to a lot of students, it is something that they are very big on. So there will probably be some form of wellbeing support at an institution. So that's really key to making sure that those young people are aware that they are, supported in a lot of different ways. They also would get academic support. Now, these are people that are associated with the course, so they're there to support them throughout their time on that course, and they can either assist with their academic progression, their personal development, they're also professional development, so that can be the development of skills for employability, which for a disabled student can, they might need to feel more comfortable with a certain person. Again, like we've said in the past, it's disability advisor. There will be disabled student support at an institution. Again, most institutions will have a similar title to disability advisor, but some might change it. So it's always worth just checking who that is, because there would be support at the institution. As we said about disabled student allowance, there is an awful lot of funding for these young people and adults to have when they go. So it's really worth them researching and finding out what support they can get. Okay. And then we've got our inclusive learning environments as well, which we're going to talk about a bit more in as well. And then we've got individual support as well that I'm going to sort of talk about. But again, for the disability advisor, they're there to arrange support for studies, needs, additional support, anything like that. They are there to make sure that students are supported in every way possible. So when we come to inclusive learning environments, these are beneficial for all students as well. This isn't just, this is about being inclusive for everybody, as not all students will disclose. Like we've said, we think it's important that students do disclose, but not all will, because of different reasons. But as we say, please, when you're speaking to students out there, to disclose. And as Justine's just said, some students might not have a disability when they're at school, but they might have one at university or higher education when they study. So it's worth, what we try and do when we come out to schools and speak to students is explain to them about these support services, because sometimes they might need it when they're there. So it's always worth them just sort of, talking to people if they think, we've had staff that have come and said, oh, now I think I've got this disability, I wasn't picked up here or there. And students are exactly the same. They go to institutions and they don't find out that they've got dyslexia, for instance, until they get to university. So it's always worth letting them know. But as we say, inclusive environments are physical accessibility. They're all accessible. There is a lot of specialist software for individuals. They have alternative assessment methods. Again, a lot of them will have different handouts. There might, and now, especially post-COVID, there is the recordings of lectures. But as I said, that's just a small sample. There are also a lot more support that institutions have to make learning as easy as possible and as stress-free as possible is what they're aiming to do. Individual reasonable adjustment, as we've said, again, this is agreed through discussion. So they would need to go to that disability advisor or their academic advisor to then build in between them and the student. It's only between those individuals, no one else. It's not sort of everybody knows about it. So again, we want to make sure that they are aware that it between the institution and themselves, it's not branded about. They're not, going to be told that everybody knows that they've got this certain disability. They all disabled students can be considered for support, and as we say, it's about being individual. So everybody has a different need, and the course and the documentary evidence is individual. So individual reasonable adjustments start with your exam support, which, like at school, they would get that support, but also it can be on sort of time management, labs, note takers, learning support plans, and sort of the list goes on. There is a wealth of reasonable adjustments that can be made for any individual, and as we say, it's very, very different for each individual, and there are lots of variations, and again, it can depend on the provider. So again, it's all worth really just going and making sure that the students research and find out what their needs are, and what they feel comfortable in terms of what they want to. But key is that they disclose it to the institution, because without them knowing about it, they can't do anything about it, and that really is sad for them to have not have the full opportunity that is right for them. So now I'm going to pass over to our ambassador, Alex. Okay, and Alex is going to talk to you a bit about her experience. All right, you there, Alex? You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I just wanted to stress, basically that the last couple sixth form had on my position, the start of
You're breaking up a bit, Alex.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I just want to stress the importance that my sixth form experience had on my transition and how much easier it made it. Because for me, for example, I was humming and hawing about whether I would be okay at university. I wasn't sure I'd be able to cope. And it was with my teacher's help that helped me research and made me aware of all the disabilities I'd be able to access, as well as the university health service that we at Sheffield have. I was recommended by my actual doctor and by my Senko lead. Without their input and their persuasion, I don't know if I would have come to university, let alone Sheffield University. So that was completely vital. I was also worried about how I'd cope in all the different environments and cope in even the accommodation itself. And they helped me research and help me understand how DSA worked. DSA was so incredibly important, incredibly helpful, because I honestly had no clue what DSA was and how it worked. So they helped me understand that and research that. So I was able to get things ready and sorted even prior coming to university, because I'm autistic. So for me, even though in the January and December prior going to university, when I was in year 13, that starting so early to transition was so important to me to help me adjust and get ready for the change. So I remember me and my Senko, we actually managed to get in contact with my disability advisor at Sheffield University that I would have. Then me and my current Senko of year 13, we met with my disability advisor at the University of Sheffield, and we then, discussed how my support that I got at school would then transfer to university, because obviously the support you have at school is so close knit and so good that it was important that that was able to transfer over to university to make my transition so much more easier. That was incredibly valuable for me as well. And then it also meant that I had her email prior to coming to university, that I already knew that when I got to university, I already knew someone online that I could ask questions for, and she'd help. And she also helped me plan and get my learning support plan put in place prior coming to university, so I knew exactly what to expect and everything. So that was just great. I was also able to actually meet her in person in the July before coming to university as well. That was incredible. And she also helped me with my DSA, and she gave me tips on things that I could ask for that would make it easier. So through DSA, for example, I got my own ensuite, which a lot of people at Sheffield have, but I was able to get that funded through DSA, so I didn't have to pay the additional for the ensuite, because that was incredibly important for me. I was able to get printing credit, so I was able to highlight things and stuff because I don't like doing it on my laptop. I was also able to get some noise cancelling headphones as well. And there's so many different things that you're able to get, but I had no clue about this until I was speaking to my disability advisor, which I got in contact with through my school. So that whole transition and the process of handing over was so vital to me, first of all going to university, but also managing the transition as well.
Lovely, thank you. No, that's absolutely perfect. Thanks, Alex. And I think, like you say, it's about disclosing and talking to your school staff member is really what you needed, wasn't it? Was to have them to be able to understand the process, to be able to support you, to be able to then go on to university. But thank you so much for your input. That is amazing. So we'll come back to you probably with some questions in a minute, because obviously I'm just going to finalise the last few. Yeah, but last few slides. So that's sort of the end of the information giving, apart from just me talking to you now about our resources. So Hepp have an awful lot of resources on our Hepp Hub, which is this website, and on there is not just resources for all students, it's also for underrepresented groups as well. So there is specific resources for disabled students, and it's there to guide and help and support, and that can be for the student, but also some of that information is really helpful for any supporter, whether that's a parent and carer or a school staff, in terms of up-to-date information. We are rebanding that at the moment, but the version that is on the website is still useful and still got all the information in it. We'll just be updating it. Obviously, on that website, there's lots of links as well to different organisations that can help. So we have resources in terms of recordings for little between 5 and 10 minute clips. There is one on student finance for DSA. So all of these are little clips that can be really helpful for staff to listen to, and they're really easy for all staff. So although, when we invite people to these sessions, we don't just want SENCOs, we want all staff out in the community as well, because these sort of sessions are really important to helping Alex, for instance, go on to study, because different people will be those bonding between students. So it's really important who lots of people read and have the access to our information. As I said, we have different tabs that you can go on specifically for different cohorts as well. So that is a really useful resource for you to be able to access. But obviously now you've heard from all of us today. So you've heard from Jackie, Justine, myself, and also the lovely Alex. If you've got questions, now's a really good time to start asking them. And as I said, we will I am available on these email addresses and websites and phone numbers, that if you get a question that is a few months down the line that you want to ask, please just get in touch. Because no question is a silly question, because obviously if we're there to help any student, sometimes they have questions that they might think is, oh gosh, that's not, I don't need to ask that, I shouldn't ask that. But actually, yes, it's really important, because that could be the difference between them going and not going. Please do get in touch and ask away. If we can't help at Hepp, then we have all our lovely colleagues that we collaborate with, both of our partners, but also Jackie at Barnsley University Centre. We all are there to try and help each other. So if you've got any questions now, please do put them into the chat. But as I say, please do fill out this poll as well, because your help is really, really vital to us, making sure that we are giving you the right information, but also anything else that you want to have. So I'm just going to go into the questions now, see if we've got any. Not at the moment. Let's see. So Justine, can you summarise how to begin to apply for DSA?
So if they've already applied for the student finance, they can go onto the portal, and it will be on there that and they can fill in the application, send off a copy of their evidence, and then they will receive the letter telling them to book study needs assessment. If they're part-time or postgraduate, then they'll need to download a full form, and if you just Google DSA application form, it will pop up there. It's just there's an extra part in that about which university you go to that you need to fill in. But if you're applying for finance, do it online, because that way it will keep you updated where it is, and it's easy to see where it is. If you're not ready to apply for DSA, start getting the medical evidence together, start thinking about that. And even for people in year 12, it's a good idea to start getting that evidence together so that you've got it for when you are ready to apply.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, I think it's about making sure it you've got the evidence, isn't it, as early as possible. But like we say, for anything like this, the earlier you apply, like Alex had it all in place for her when she joined the university. But for some, if you leave it later, it becomes further on into the time, and that can sometimes be more stressful to the individual because they're not going to have their whole full package in place when they start, and that can be very nerves, then anxiety and all of that, when actually if they did just done it a few weeks earlier, then it should have all been in place. Do you do a session? Yes, we do sessions for parents and students. Yes, we did that back in September. So we will be doing that for the next academic year. We tend to do that around the November, I think it was this year. But that is for parents and students as well. Very similar to this session, but there are some tweaks to it as well. But yes, there is another session.
There was a question there about does everyone who applies for it get it? That's dependent on your evidence. If your evidence is sound that this will impact upon your concentration or your energies, provided the evidence is sound, you won't be, there is no way they'd reject it. It's all based on the level of the evidence.
Thank you. Any questions, any further questions? As I said, sometimes you can think of them when you've left the room. So please do just get in touch. You've got our contact details, but we will stay around for another few minutes if anyone has any questions. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Alex, Jackie and Justine, for supporting me today with this event. As I say, thank you for your time as well, because I know, 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, you'd it's a lot to come along. So thank you very much for joining us this tea time.